All right, man. Episode 37 of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. This is being recorded on December 8th, 2022 at 3:20 p.m. It's a Thursday recording this one early because I will not get an opportunity this upcoming weekend, but you will be listening to this when it premieres on that weekend, or afterwards, I should say, to speak. Hope you all are having a great December so far. We're only 8 days in, of course, but there's so much to get due this month. So much to get done from before the end of the year. So many gifts to buy for your loved ones and acquaintances. Time's running out, man. We got to get the 2022 tasks done so we can go right into 2023 with our feet on the ground, ready to do whatever it is we need to do, man. Whatever our creative endeavors lead us, man. We're gonna be freaking looking at it dead on, man. We're not gonna be afraid. We're gonna do the job, man. We're gonna do the work. Jeez Louise, man. I know I've been doing the work. You kidding me, man? Oh my gosh, we trying to find the time for all this stuff, man. It's wild. Reading and writing and watching. It's insane, man. It's just I just it's every hour of every day, man. You know, if but the important thing is that if you like it, if you don't like what you're doing, then don't do it, man. You know. And now I love reading, I love my writing, and I love watching. And if I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it. And although in a perfect ideal setting, we'd have the daylight go on and the night go on. We'd have more than 24 hours to get the job done, but we don't, and we're not going to dwell on that, man, because dwelling on it's not going to get us anywhere. We're going to be running in circles and wondering why we're at the point we started at, you know? So we all get the same 24 hours, man. It's just what you do with it, you know? I mean, you can't be sitting around talking about doing this, doing that, and then wondering, oh, I wish I had done this. It's like, dude, the time you were taking to talk about it, you could have just done it in that time, man, you know? It's just senseless, man. All right. Jeez, I come home, I got a stack of movies here. It's great, man. This is fantastic. I got my order in from Kino Lorber had a sale, so I picked up a couple titles there. And Mondo Macabro had their Black Friday sale, and so I just picked up two titles there. I'll just run through these quickly, just for the sake of it. And with the Mondo Macabro one, I also pre-ordered the Dr. Caligari 4K. That's coming out in February, so looking forward to checking out that film. It looks like a really crazy film, sometime from the 90s, I believe, is when it came out. So definitely looking forward to that. And I got my Vinegar Syndrome package in the mail the other day. Yeah, took that out, put them all on the shelf, and lots to get done there, lots to get watched. Guess I'll briefly run through these, man. I only got two Mondo Macabro titles. I picked up on Blu Ray Sleep Daughters of Eve. Now, back in the day, there was a video store that was run by an acquaintance of mine, and him and I were on good terms. We were friendly. Went there for a long time. They always had a lot of cult titles, a lot of titles of films like The Secret Life of Jeffrey Dahmer, Damnation Alley, Barbarella, Snuff. A lot of films that, you know, a lot of cult titles, man. That's the first place I saw a lot of these films, and Sleep Daughters of Eve was one that I always saw there. Very memorable cover art, and I'm looking forward to watching this one. I don't even know what this one's about, man. It's one that I've just when this got announced, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get this day one, you know, and then I just never did. I tend to do that a lot. A lot of titles that I end up talking about getting, I just don't get till a bit later. But very happy to have this for sure, man. I'm gonna be hopefully checking this out fairly soon. Make some room for all these titles. I got on DVD. I got Gradiva or Gradiva. Is that how you say it? Gradiva or Gradiva? This is from 2006, directed by Alain Robbe-Grillet. And he's primarily the reason why I picked this up because I don't know if I ever talked about Trans-Europ Express on the show, but that's a really cool film, man, that I've seen twice. Actually, that was also that's a redemption title. Sorry, just typing something here. That was a redemption title put up by Kino. So if you're listening to this and the sale's still going on, give that one a watch. I have two other of his films, The Man Who Lies, and I don't remember the name of the third one. But Trans-Europ Express is such an interesting and cool film, man. And I just really like his work, man. I always get him mixed up with the other. Oh no, okay, never mind. So he did because I wanted to make sure I got that right. So, and he also wrote last year Marion Bad from 1961, directed by Alain Resnais, and that's who I kept getting mixed up. Man, I always because the Alain part it was throwing me off. And last year Marion Bad it's one of my favorite films ever. A fantastic, experimental, somewhat, depending how you interpret it, non-linear film. Man, I just love that film, man. That is just one of my favorites. Also by, I think Kino have that disc as well. So, now this is a later film for me, which I'm a little bit weary about. I still want to see it regardless, but I think I mentioned before a lot of filmmakers, or maybe I haven't mentioned before, I don't know what I talk about in the show and what I don't, but a lot of these legendary or older kind of filmmakers that they can't really, a lot of times their work into the 21st century, or their later work, I should say, does not hold up quite as well. And it's ridiculous to even think that. And it's funny, I look on the cover here, and it actually just said writer of last year at Marion Bad and director of trans-europ Express, so I could have just looked on there instead of trying to find information online. But even later Bergman stuff is really cool, though. You guys ever see Saraband from 2003? I believe that was his last film. I'm not exactly sure. But, yeah, man, looking forward to checking that one out. And then from Kino, I got a couple titles here. Variety. This was one that Brian Sauer was talking about, man. And this one sounded totally up my alley, man. About a young woman who was working at this porno theater and the lives of the people who come in there. Let me see. Emerging out of the underground NYC. I don't want to read the whole thing about that on here. A desperately unemployed young woman who lands a job selling tickets at a porn theater where she finds herself drawn to events on the screen, which complicates her relationship with her boyfriend, Mark, played by Will Patton. Fascination becomes fixation as she follows a dangerous-looking... I don't want to read all this because I have not seen the film, but sounded like, the way that Brian had described it sounded totally up my alley. So definitely looking forward to that. Grabbed Breezy, the Clint Eastwood directed film. I don't know. Did he follow up Play Misty for me with this? I believe this is like an early film of his, an early directorial work, 73. And I've just been trying to watch all of Eastwood's directed stuff. I think I've seen most of it. His newer films I haven't seen. I haven't seen 1517 to Paris, Sully, Flags of Our Fathers, Letters from Iwo Jima. It might be True Crime. Well, I guess True Crime is older. Well, 90s, I should say. So there's still a lot of it I have to see, but I think I've seen most of them. But that there. I finally got the In Bruges 4K. This was one that I don't remember if I had mentioned it on the show or not when I was talking about whenever this came out, but one of my favorite films, period. Just really happy to upgrade this. This was one that I've been wanting to see for a long time, and I did not even know this had a Blu Ray out, so I was so happy to pick this up. Filmed by Jim McBride. This is David Holzman's Diary. Yeah, man, when I saw this pop up on the site, I clicked that buy button so fast, man, to make your head spin. Definitely, I've always heard so many good things about this, and just totally gonna check that out. Treasure of the Four Crowns in 3D. I remember when I was younger, I used to get this. I get a sip of cola here. Jeez Louise. I used to get this mixed up with Raiders of Atlantis by Ruggero Deodato. I don't know why I got that, man, but why I got those mixed up. And for some reason, I guess I thought that Ruggero Deodato directed this one too, but he didn't. So I'm not really sure where that confusion came from. But I got that on Blu-ray as well from Severin, and this looks like I've known about this for a long time. It's like an Indiana Jones type of rip-off film. But apparently it's fun, so that's got to be watched. And finally, Trackdown with Jim Mitchum and Karen Lamb. Eric Estrada as well is in this. What If It Was Your Sister? I think this is this just played or is playing at the New Beverly. I think this was on a double bill with Hardcore, the Paul Schrader film with George C. Scott. That'd be a hell of a double right there. Never seen Trackdown, but again, another one that Brian Sauer has talked about, and Elric Kane, and Yeah, so good titles here, man. I usually end up spending more, getting a whole bunch of titles, but here, I have so much to catch up on. Usually, I just will just buy a whole bunch of titles, and you know what, next sale I probably will as well. But for now, it was nice to just get a little small stack like this and just go through these when I get the opportunity because there's been so much to watch, man. It is insane. I mean, the amount of films out there is insane as is, but when you start becoming aware of what you're watching, man, better sit down, man. Make you dizzy as hell, man. There's so much out there, man. Let's see. Let's break. I got my stuff on Blu Ray I gotta watch. I got my streaming titles I gotta watch. I got my movies by mail, my Netflix titles in the mail. My stuff I recorded off of TCM. The titles I gotta watch for the list episodes, and then the titles that I rent from the library. So like seven different titles, seven different sections of titles that I gotta check out, man. And it's never ending. But like I said before, man, if you're happy with what you're doing, it ain't gonna feel like much, man. Because although sometimes it's like, man, I got all this stuff to do. If you didn't like it, you wouldn't do it, man. It ain't no one forcing you to do something you don't want to do, man. And if they are, if you got to reevaluate the situation. If you don't want to, work with mathematics and you're doing mathematics every day, what the hell are you doing, man? Is someone holding a gun to your head and telling you got to do this mathematics formula? I don't know, man. But just like what you do, man, because if you don't, you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life. And you meet people, or at least I've met people, or they have no interests in stuff. They just have no hobbies. And it's just like, man, it's just, what are you doing, man? If you're happy, Godspeed to you. It ain't my place, ain't anyone's place to tell you how to live your life. But you just meet these kind of people who just like there's nothing behind their eyes, man. They just go to work and they do their work and they go home, sit in front of the TV, drink beer, and then go to bed, man. That's their entire life right there. And you go, there is no amount of creative or intellectual ideas in their head, man. It's just, or if there are, they buried that away. This is senseless, man. It really is. It's just absolute nonsense. But geez, man. Speaking before what I was talking about with Alain Robbe-Grillet, or Grillet, I don't know how to say his name. He's been mentioned a bunch in that French book that I've been reading, man. They talked about those, primarily those two films. They briefly talked about Trans-Europ Express and last year Marion Bad. And Trans-Europ Express, it's a great film, man. You got John Louis Trintignant in there from films like The Great Silence, My Night at Maud's, more recently passed away within the last year, R.I.P. to him. But it's I really love what he does with the film, man. I mean, John Louis Trintignant's quickly become one of my favorite actors. I just loved him. Everything he's done. The film's got a really cool, lighthearted, at times kind of feel to it. But then it's not. It gets into some darker elements. It gets into some meta stuff. The ending is pretty meta as well. Plus, to my knowledge, I believe that Alain is playing himself or someone like himself in the film. I don't remember if it's the same character or not early on, but you have a character beginning of the film basically talking about the setup for the film, and along the way it's interesting because when there's a problem with the plot or the logic, another character on the train will point that out and go, that don't make sense, man. And he says, it doesn't matter. Let's just move on, So it's self-aware but not being obnoxious. I think sometimes when a film starts to be meta or starts to break the fourth wall, for me, man, there's a fine line that's got to be walked between being piss poor writing and something clever. Because horror films especially, man. There's so many. If I hear, besides like since Scream, if I hear a contemporary horror film coming out that's meta, dude, I steer far and far away from that, man. I have no interest. The horror films I've seen that are meta and try to break down the genre and do fourth wall breaks, man, dude, I could not have had a more straight face, man. Those do not interest me. I don't think they're very ever cleverly written, man. And typically, there's some films I question whether the filmmaker's intent is even as a love letter to film, or if it's just a mean-spirited poke with some of these often feel like they are. But you just don't watch them. You don't dwell on it. If people enjoy them, then you gotta respect their decision because they're gonna enjoy stuff that you don't like. But when it comes to Trans-Europ Express, it's one that's got to be seen. I don't remember who the main actress in the film is, but yeah, she's just one of these beautiful French women, man. You just look at her and it's like something out of she's like a model, man. It's insane. Great film though. Definitely got to give that one a watch if you're interested in any kind of French New Wave or 60s French films from that time period, man. Very ahead of its time. With a lot of the bondage stuff going on in that film. A lot of the great balance of tone. Oh man, I just really, really dig that film. And if you're feeling more in an experimental, more serious mood, then Last Year of Marion Bad is definitely one that you have to keep an eye out for, man. But I think that one is pretty well known. Man, you forget how much an actor like Jean-Louis Trintignant is in, man. You forget how many movies he's in. That guy did so many freaking movies, man. It's crazy, man. Hey, he lived and I think and worked a hell of a lot, man. I think he was semi-retired. Oh, he was also in Z as well. You guys ever see that from 1969? And A Man and a Woman, of course. I mean, I think he was semi-retired, but would only return for the Michael Haneke films. What was his last film? Happy End, I think. The Michael Haneke film from 2018. Whenever that came out. That was 2017 or 2018. Let me check on that because that is okay. It's 2017, and then the last film he did was a film in 2019 called The Best Years of a Life. And I am not familiar with this film, man. Directed by Claude Lelouch or Lelouch. I don't know how to say these names, man. It's insane. Oh man, but look at this, man. You got Anouk Aimee or Ami, however you say her name. Oh man, that's great. I didn't know she was in this film, man. I might have to actually keep an eye on this film, man. She's a great actor, man. A bunch of the Fellini stuff. She was in Lola by Jacques Demy. Oh my gosh, man, beautiful actor, man. Just fantastic. Yeah, I got to keep an eye out for this film, man. That's pretty wild. Oh man. Man, the other day I watched on TCM Freebie and the Bean. I had recorded that off DVR. I think they were playing that around the time that James Caan had passed away earlier this year. You had James Caan in the film and Alan Arkin, and the movie is just completely off the wall nuts. It's a totally wild film, and I mean, you think one of the best things that kind of summed up the film, which I'm gonna probably say incorrectly, but somebody said along the lines of it makes Dirty Harry look calm or something like that. I mean, you got these two cops who, I mean, they just have no regards for any kind of emotional or physical or mental damage, man. These guys, the amount of property damage that goes on in this film is absolute insanity, man. There's cars busting through apartments. There's cars just driving all over the road, guns being fired, man. It's complete insanity. And it's a comedy, too, which, you got to be upfront about because there's a lot of moments where the two of these guys are just arguing and bickering and fighting. And it's great. They play off each other really well, and I believe a lot of the film was, at least a good amount of their dialogue was improvised. And it makes sense. They have a really good kind of kinetic flow with each other. Directed by Richard Rush, who I think primarily did, he did stuff, a lot of biker films, man. He did films like Hell's Angels on Wheels and Thunder Alley, did other stuff like Psych Out, The Savage Seven. The last thing he did was the Bruce Willis film Color of Night from '94, which I haven't seen. Actually, another Kino title right there, man. I see that pop up all the time. But, a lot of just wild stunts in the film, man. I mean, it's one of these films where a lot of the comedy it works out great for the bickering back and forth between these two, but at the same time of the pure spectacle of just the amount of insane property damage going on here, man. It's the kind of carefree attitude of a film where they go so wild with what damage they do and the fact that it's never brought up again, it's never addressed, whereas any other kind of film, if it's a drama, if it's any sort of crime film, man, they're going to dwell on that for a while, as they should. But this film is not interested in that. It's interested in more of a farce, in more of being a very slapstick, silly, and very adult film. A lot of humor in the film, a lot of language is very adult, but very funny as well. You know, it's entirely subjective. Some people may watch this film and not crack a smile, man, but I was laughing pretty hard repeatedly. And this was just a total. This was one that I just knew by the title, and I wasn't even familiar with the fact that Alan Arkin and James Caan were in it. Because I recorded this off TCM, and a lot of times if I hear a title or I see something and I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of familiar, man. I think I heard somebody else talk about this, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and record that. And a lot of times I do that, man. You discover a lot of films that way. You got to take chances on films you never heard of, man, because you're gonna discover some really solid films that way. I've come across films like The Breaking Point and Moonrise. These great films I never would have seen before if I just hadn't been like, oh, that sounds interesting, man. You know, the title or a picture you see. And actually, I wasn't even aware that both those were Criterion titles until a little while ago, because I just saw them and I was like, wow, these should be Criterion Blu-rays. And then I find out they are, and it's like, great, man. I picked up The Breaking Point a while ago. I haven't picked up Moonrise yet. Both solid crime films, man. Really, really enjoyed the both of them as well. But yeah, man, because with James Caan, I had also watched The Rain People. What was that, 69, I think, or 68? That might actually even be later. Holy moly, man. Let me get that date up here. Oh, 69. Here we go, man. We got James Caan and Shirley Knight in the film. Shirley Knight's looking beautiful in this. And Robert Duvall comes into the picture in the third act, or the second half, so to speak. And this was a real cool film, man. This is one that you can just see the way that Coppola directs a lot of the actors, man. The way that it at times feels very cinema verite, or a fly on the wall at times, while still being scripted in a lot of the car sequences, man. There's some great moments later on that make you feel a little uncomfortable when Natalie, played by Shirley Knight, is trying to get rid of this guy Jimmy and kind of drops him off at like this farm area, this real scuzzy kind of guy who's going to take advantage of Jimmy. And if you don't know the plot of the film, you got Natalie, who's at the beginning of the film runs away from her husband. She needs some freedom, man. She makes a discovery, and she's like, I need to deal with this, man. And she comes across this hitchhiker, Jimmy, played by James Caan, who has either brain damage or a form of retardation from an injury playing football. He had some sort of like a head injury, man, and he's definitely not all there, man. Needs somebody to take care of him, but he has no one around. So Natalie's trying to kind of get rid of him, and it's not a great film, man. I think it does get a bit repetitive. There's a lot of times in the film when Natalie yells at him and says, "I can't do this anymore, man," and she drives away, and then she stops and thinks about it, and Jimmy comes right back. That happens about 2 or 3 times. It starts to get a little repetitive, and even later on when she actually wants to leave and like leaves him for good for an X amount of time. Before eventually coming back, it's a little repetitive at that point. Robert Duvall is very good in the film as well. Would work later with Coppola, The Godfather, of course, and it's great to see him in a role like this. He's playing a real kind of like, this is a world full of just real sleazy kind of characters, man. People who like you just don't want to get involved with, man, because they're not going to take care of you. They're going to try to con you out of whatever it is they can, man. They got no value for friendship or human dignity or anything like that, man. Just people. Just these 60s kind of characters you meet along the way. I am happy I watched it overall, though, because I actually did like it quite a bit. I still got to see some Coppola's other early works. I need to see Finnegan's Rainbow and Dementia 13 and The Terror. I mean, I know that technically The Terror is directed by a handful of different people, but when I was talking about before at the beginning of the episode, let me get the thing here. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull something up. And I really don't like IMDb's new layout, man. It's a real pain in the ass trying to get vital information. Let me see here. Battle Beyond the Sun I haven't seen. The Bellboy and the Playgirls I've seen. Tonight for Sure I haven't seen. Okay, so quite a bit. You're a Big Boy Now, Dementia 13, The Terror, Tonight for Sure, and Battle Beyond the Sun I need to see. And then from there I've seen most of his other work. Yeah, I've seen most of these. But you want to talk about a filmmaker still making good stuff, man. I don't know where people got this idea. I mean, Coppola is still making cool films, man. I mean, I don't know where the idea. I feel like there was people had this idea that he wasn't up to snuff anymore. I talked about before that film Texture from 2009 was a film that I've really grown fond of, man. Vincent Gallo, one of my favorite artists, working in Alden at Ehrenreich, or however you say his name. They're both solid in the film, and this is one that I think is pretty underseen. Shot in beautiful black and white, great complicated relationship between these two brothers. Man, it's a real cool film that I think it came out, and I remember hearing some not so great things about, and I guess I just hadn't seen it until later on. But when I did, I was just like, man, that's a really solid film, man. This is really cool. And that film he did in 2011. Twixt with Val Kilmer and Elle Fanning. I never saw, man. Apparently that was a pretty not too interesting. But, you got to see, a problem that I had done or I had come across before is not seeing films because other people had their opinion on it. It's just such nonsense, man. People go, I ain't going to see that film. It didn't get good reviews. Gives a damn about the reviews, man. Do you want to see it? That's the only question you should be interested in, man. I don't care what it is. If you want to see the film, go ahead and see it. And Twixt, I do want to see for sure. And he's got, what's the name of his new film? Megalopolis or something like that, man. Hey, man, he's one of the true great artists still working, sinking his kind of $100 million into a passion project for that. One of the filmmakers who came out of that era that just really wanted to be an artist, man, and really wanted to just tell these stories. Didn't matter what happened. Unfortunately, you have artists like George Lucas who get sidetracked and become disinterested in the format after making one big film when his previous work I think has so much more potential and is far more interesting of these really interesting character works of American Graffiti or building this whole dystopian world of THX 1138. Really interesting stuff. It's one of the big tragedies of cinema that we never got more films from him after that point, man. Whereas you have the Spielbergs, the Scorseses, Coppolas, all these filmmakers who were, De Palmas, all these filmmakers who were premiering around the same time, who were running in the same circles, making these terrific films and continuing to do so. And actually, even George Lucas had done a documentary about Coppola, or at least done I don't know if it was a documentary on him or the making of when he was making The Rain People. So that's going to have to be watched at some point for sure. All right, man. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. This was the Cozy Corner of Cinema. Take care.